do you feel like right now in this moment you know what your purpose is? And then number 2, how recent did you find out what your purpose is?
I plead the fifth.
Welcome back.
Welcome. Thriving Teen Tuesday. We are here yet again. We have our lovely guest. Well, almost, I guess.
He's part of the show, actually.
Introduce yourself. Okay.
Myself.
Yeah.
I need to introduce myself.
Yeah, this is Dennis.
Yeah, this is me, Dennis.
He was in the other video. If you didn't watch it, go watch it. Okay. And then our very special guest.
Guest of honor.
Yes.
My name is Daniel Kojoakumiajan.
Period.
Okay.
Full government.
So Brother Daniel is, you want to say a little bit more about yourself? Like, what are you?
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
So, I have a family of 5.
Okay.
My wife and 3 kids. And I'm currently in school studying my Master of Divinity at Wesley Theological.
Okay.
And yeah, I think that should do it.
That should do it, yes. Thank you. And this is the Ivy and me. Ebony and Ivory. You already know. So today we are talking about communication with God. So what does communication with God look like for us? How do you pray? When do you pray? And then the discernment. How do you know when God is speaking back to you and what to do with it? So that's pretty much what we're going to be just thinking about.
Yeah.
As always. No pressure, so you don't have to know God in advance. You don't have to know God after this video. This is just broadening your horizons on if you want to have that conversation, if you want to start, how do you start?
Yeah.
How, if, Brother Dan, actually, we'll start with Dennis. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you talk about communication with God?
It's just having a chat
Yes.
with God. Is what I think of. But the part that for me personally, I kind of like lately rely so much on is the listening aspect of communication with God. A lot of times we do a lot of asking, and we almost never take a moment to listen to God. So that's an aspect of the communication that I would like to actually delve more into at some point during this conversation. But yeah.
Brother Daniel?
Well, when it comes to communicating with God, it depends on how you see God in the first place.
Correct.
I usually see God as my friend.
Yes.
So, for instance, I walk into a space and I imagine that God is sitting next to me. So, whatever I will discuss with my friend, I will discuss with God. Obviously, there are times that I would need certain things. Maybe I'm hard pressed, and so I would want to go into proper prayer. But I usually want to see God as someone who is very close to me, much like a friend is, whom I can share everything with.
You're right. I love that. And I feel like I look at God like that too.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get in the car and I'm like, hey God, it's me today. I know I didn't talk to you this morning, but let me tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
You know what's going on.
That's why I like DMX.
But no, just talking to God as a friend, somebody
Yes.
who's like, hey, I'm safe here talking to you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I personally, when I think about communication with God, the first thing I think about is like talking to him like I talk to everybody else. So yes, he's a higher being, he's supreme power. However, he doesn't require us to do certain things before we talk to him. So I personally don't feel like it's never formal. I never sit down and say, I do sometimes, but I don't always have to be like, oh, I'm sitting down to talk to God. It just comes naturally. Like I'll just start talking to God about something. Sometimes I'll be talking to God and talking to the kids, and they're looking at me like they're confused.
Now, please
Like, I'm not really
talk
talking to you, but in this moment, I feel like I'm having a conversation with you, but I'm not having a conversation with you. And sometimes I verbally will speak out loud in my communication, but most of the time it's internal. So the first thing that I think about with communication with God is just talking to him like regular people. So, yeah.
Thanks, Sister Mabel.
Thank you.
What's the next question?
Next question is, So basically, how do you start the communication with God? How do you pray? How do you start? Is there like a formal way we have to talk to God? Do you have to go on your knees? Do you have to do certain things? What was your recommendation to our audience on how they can start that communication?
So if God is a friend, then think of the process as how you make your friend.
Yes.
The first time you meet your friend, you don't just go about, hey, how are you?
Yes.
There is some order to it.
Mm-hmm.
Until you build a friendship to a certain level,
Mm-hmm.
where you are now very okay with God.
Right.
So definitely when you're starting, there's some formality to it.
Mm.
And what most religions, what Christianity proposes is that you set aside a time to pray.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you think of a friend, you also think of someone that you share everything with, right? So if your friend asks you for money,
Mm-hmm.
most likely, even if you have very little left, you're going to give it to your friend because that's your friend.
Right.
If your friend asks that, look, I need your presence here, I need you to come,
Mm-hmm.
you would leave everything that you're doing and go to this friend. So when you think of communicating with God and the process of communicating with God, and you think about God being a friend, you don't just start by being a friend. There's some process to it,
Yeah.
and that is where prayer comes in,
Mm-hmm.
and that is where fasting comes in.
Mm-hmm.
That is where your spiritual life comes in, because God is spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And for your spirit, and we know that every human being also has their body, soul, and spirit, right? So for your spirit to communicate with the Spirit of God, you have to train your spirit. And that is where we say, well, pray. Usually, some pastors would recommend that on the day that you were born, you set aside a few hours to fast.
Yeah.
So fasting means taking off the things that you normally do. So for instance, if you normally eat in the morning, you want to take it off and say, look, I am dedicating this time to improve my spiritual life with God. And I think that is very key. I don't know if you want me to go into...
No, please. Please.
Yeah, if you go deep, I think we're gonna lose people. But what I want to tag to that is I look at it from my Christian background. I look at it from how Jesus taught the disciples to pray. Or when that big question was posed as to how. Yes, he did talk about the Lord's Prayer, but the Lord's Prayer is broken down into segments where there's a part where God wants us to worship Him. So when somebody's done something for you, you know they've done something for you. When you see them, what do you say to them? You say thank you, right? So that's for me the order that I go by. I go by giving the shout outs, giving the thanks, giving the praise, doing all those things like, singing the appellations. Because at the back of my mind, I know I'm about to ask for something.
Right.
And I
He's
don't
like,
wanna-
I'm warming you up.
So I have to big you up. You see what I'm saying? I know God knows
Our thoughts.
our
Yeah.
thoughts, but at the same time, I got to big him up and say, look, you're this person. Nobody else can do what I'm asking for. It's only you that can do it for me.
Yep.
Right? So as I'm begging him up to the point where now I can ask for something. I mean, if somebody does something for you, you don't say thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you begging him up because you're about to ask for something. Is that genuine? Are you genuinely saying thank you to him?
Well, yes,
Okay.
because I'm appreciating what
What
he's
you
done for
already
me
have.
previously.
Okay.
And then on top of that, why am I going to him? I'm going to him because I know he can do it.
Okay.
So God knows my heart that I'm believing that he can do something for me. So why, I know I'm about to ask either way, but I'm also asking because I know he's the one that can do it for me. So I'm trusting that he can do it for me.
I may have another question.
I'm about to say, like, two questions just came into my brain. Go ahead.
I like the perspective you brought in terms of, still think of it in the form of a friendship, right? If the four of us are friends, definitely one might be closer to you
Than the
than the other.
Yes.
So when you think of God as a friend, there are levels to the closeness of
Yep.
God,
Yes.
right? And that closeness will determine what you ask and what you get. to a large extent. I'm not saying that even when you are not close to God, God will not provide. God will provide for you. But there are some people who are very close. For instance, Abraham in the Bible and Moses in the Bible. Moses was so close to God that he was just talking to God, let me see your face. Then God says, no, I won't let you see my face. Like two friends really having a real chat.
Having a conversation,
But
right?
how many of us and how many pastors can actually talk to God like that? Because day in and day out, we are all working on our friendship with God.
Yes.
We are all building our friendship with God.
Yes.
Right.
To the point that you don't even have to ask. And God knows your heart. God knows
Yeah.
that this, my friend, needs something.
Yeah.
So you're saying, based on that, right? Based on that, we should focus more on the worship
Building
part,
the relationship.
or
Building
the
the
praise
relationship.
part, and not worry about asking because
Yeah.
He's already done it.
He already
He
knows.
knows what you want.
Let's build a relationship.
Yes.
Good.
Let's build a relationship, yes.
I saw this thing on actually I was listening to something where a father and a son were having a conversation, and the father said, "Oh, the son asked his father, how come the plane is so small?" And then the father said, "Really? It's small? You think it's small?" I said, "Okay." And the father put the kid in the car and they drove straight to the airport. And as they were getting closer to the airport and they were seeing the planes, parked there and, sitting, the father asked him, does he see the plane? He said yes. And he asked, how big is it now? He said, oh, it's bigger. And then they got closer. As they got closer, it was bigger and bigger and bigger, and then boom, right there. And it's huge. He said, oh, wow, it's so huge. And then basically the moral of it is that the closer you get to God, the bigger you see Him to be. Because you see Him, God is far away.
Unreachable.
Because you're not connected or you're not close to Him well enough, you think God is small.
Right.
Or you probably don't even think God exists. But when you get closer to Him, you see how big and how
He
huge
is,
God
yeah.
is. So that
Yeah.
was something that I took.
That was
from
very nice.
So,
Yeah.
So I had a question,
Yes.
but you had a question.
No, you asked your question
Okay, so my question, is right now we are all in different journeys with God, right? And it's kind of hard. You can't really say my journey is this and your journey is here. So I'm inched a little bit closer to God than you. I'm God's favorite, by the way. But I am. So back when you were a teenager, how did that relationship with God look like? Because a lot of times we fast forward to I already know Christ. But before you knew Christ for yourself, how did that look like and what caused you to build a relationship with God and communicate with God?
Wow.
A very good question.
We gotta go back to the past.
Yes.
I'm going to give you the longer version.
Okay.
But I'll try and keep it
No problem.
short so we can all have a conversation.
Yes.
I was born with neonatal seizures, what we call convulsions.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, what's that?
When I was a
Okay.
kid. And my father would tell me that anytime the convulsions would come, before they came, I would rush to where he's sitting, put my head between his knees, and that is how he knew
It was
that I was
coming.
going to
Oh, wow.
convulse. And then the moment I do that, he would start rushing me to the hospital. On the way, I'll start convulsing. So that went on for some time until, there's a story that I was told,
Yes.
because I don't remember most of that. It went on for some time until some family friends recommended to my parents to take me to a church where I would get my healing. And they did, and I got my healing there. And that's how my parents, they were in the city at the time, but through that healing, they started going to the church and they became more devout. So they were Methodists before this episode happened, and the church that they went to was not Methodist. But then it so happened that Daddy went on pension and we moved to the village. And the only church that was there was, the Methodist Church, Presbyterian, Pentecost, Catholic Church. And Daddy asked us, where do we want to go? So we did some digging and knew that they were Methodist before. We told them that we want to go to Methodist. And that's how come we became Methodist. But growing up, when I could remember, I do not think that I was really interested in God,
Yes.
anything like that. Yes, I'll follow my father and my mother to church. Most of the time, I wouldn't want to go because Journey to the West was playing.
Or there's a game, you know, there's always something playing. Can y'all change the times things play, like for real?
Your viewers should go and check on what Journey to the West is. They will know what it is. So that happened until I went to the senior high school. I bought a Bible that I still have today. And even that Bible, I only opened it 3 times.
Wow.
In the whole of high school.
The fact that you know how many
Right.
times.
3 times. One time when my father was seriously sick, I think I went to God. I read the Bible and I prayed that God should save my dad. I really love my dad.
Oh.
He's 94.
Oh,
He's still
wow.
living by the grace of God.
Thank God.
Yeah. And then I went to the university. And the university, maybe I opened my Bible twice. It was after university that I started working in 2012. That's a lady that I taught her when she was in junior high school, and I had just finished senior high school. She came to my office where I was working, and then she told me about a pastor, Joseph Prince, and how this pastor is preaching about grace and everything, and I had not heard about grace before at the time. So I decided to, I'll listen to what this pastor is saying, and I listened. And the words and the intuition and everything that I got was so wonderful. I started feeling like God had been closer to me all this while, and I didn't know.
You didn't see it.
And that really started my journey to get much closer to God. So I didn't start early, but I pray that your viewers will start much earlier.
Yes.
in their relationship
No
with God.
pressure. Okay. What about you, Dennis?
I mean, I grew up in a Christian home, household. Sunday school was it for me, where, you know, we go to Sunday school, we're having fun, we're singing the Sunday school songs. What else? I mean, and being involved with the Bible quizzes, quiz competitions, sword drill, or drawing sword, whatever it is, competitions. So all of those things kind of like came together where now I build that connection so strong where I wouldn't miss church for anything. So unfortunately, my story is a lot different with yours because when I went to high school, honestly, I went to college school. I'm not a Catholic, so what the college did then, I took part in stuff, but then it wasn't me, so I would go to mass because we were forced to be there. And I felt like I wasn't really, my Christian life wasn't there when school was in session, and when I go home, I'm back to normal.
Right.
And then at some point I'm like, well, what's going on? Why am I doing that? But that was it for me, and then, you know, yeah.
Okay, Sister Mabel.
You want to go? Oh, me? Okay.
Yeah.
So like Dennis, I've always been a part of the church. My parents, my stepdad is actually Muslim, and one thing he always told me about relationships with God in general, no matter what your religion is the basis is love. So be kind to everybody and show love to everyone, and that's what every religion is teaching you. So once you have that foundation, it doesn't matter necessarily what your religion is, but just be a good person, and then everything else will work out good for you. So that was always something that was in the back of my mind, where I didn't feel like I had to force to do certain things because I wanted to just be a good person.
Right.
So I feel like, yes, I went to church and all of those things, but my mind at that time wasn't, I want to know God.
Right.
It was, I want to be a good person. How do I become a good person? So in asking myself time and time again, how do I become a good person? How do I do the right thing? Then it led me to, okay, which book do I go to find out how to be a good person? How do I find out if what I'm doing is enough? And all of those. So that's what brought me to, by this time, I think I was in my 20s. That's what brought me to the Bible. I've always had a Bible, but I ain't never read it.
Right.
Or I would read it during church, and then you close the book. Sometimes I'll write I like to write. So I write my notes, and then I won't ever read the notes because it's like, it was for that moment. It wasn't forever. And I'll close the Bible and go put the Bible in the bag, and then I'll pick it up Sunday.
Yeah.
That's literally what I was doing. And I do that sometimes even now. but I'm telling on myself. But so it was going back and realizing, okay, I want to be this person,
Right.
and the person who created me to be this person has guidelines and things that I should do.
Mhm.
So if I really want to be this person, then I need to go back to my creator and find out, okay, what is it that you want me to do? And in talking to him and like literally just having candid conversations with God. And I remember the first time I heard him like speak to me, I was like, wow.
Is that really you, Lord?
And then I was, I'm extra. I need you to give me some signs. Okay? And he did. He gave me the signs and he did everything. And, I've had many, many miracles in my life. But the conversations with him became easier and easier and easier and easier. Like today I was doing my daughter's hair and poor child, I was singing and praying in her ears and, she'll be all right. But it just became easier.
Right.
So I think it was having the foundation of the vision. I want to be a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And then the journey of how do I become that good person and who's going to help me to get there.
Mhm.
So for me, maybe I would say my 20s I became serious, but the foundation has always been there.
Right.
It's just knowing God for myself didn't happen until I recognized that what I want to do requires backing.
Mm-hmm. So I'll say for me, honestly, I'll say it sounds like for most of us, we really
Yes.
didn't get to know God until our 20s, or really having or building that relationship with Him until we
Mhm.
were in our 20s.
Yeah.
Because I know when I was in middle school, high school, I was just focused on what's the hot gossip, what's the tea, what's
Okay.
going on. Yes, I'll go to church on Sundays, but
Yes.
like you were saying, I open it that Sunday, write my notes that Sunday.
That's
the next
it.
Sunday, I open it again. I wouldn't reflect on what I said or what I read last week. But it's just one of those, let's be honest, when you're a teenager, you're not really worried about what's going on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're just worried about what's going on in your present time, like what's
Yes.
going on in school. But we're just on this platform to tell you, like, hey, you can still focus on your personal life, but also be intentional with building a relationship with God. Don't
Yes.
wait till
You need him.
you need Him, right?
Yeah.
But it's just one of those, if you have that opportunity when that resource is presenting to you, take advantage of it, because obviously we're teaching you for a reason.
Yes.
Granted, we're grateful enough to realize, hey, in our 20s, we're able to, okay, I realize I really need you, Lord. But if we look back and reflect, we wish we actually got to know when we were younger, right?
Yeah, because man, some of the things I was going through, if I had tapped into God, I probably wouldn't
Yep.
have gone through
Mhm.
a lot of it.
I feel like friendship
And I think-
drama comes into it and all that
exactly,
stuff. So
exactly.
That's
And I
how
think it's life in general,
Mhm.
nature, or humanity, I should put it that way. We tend to run to a safe haven
Mhm.
when things are not going well.
Yes.
When we're in need, is
Mhm.
when we tend to look for that
help,
source or
yes.
tap into that source. And I think sometimes it's never too late to see God,
Mhm.
but then it almost becomes too late to, okay, how come I never, took this journey?
Right.
Why did I wait so long? Why am I waiting to need something before
Mhm.
I actually try to get to know God in order to settle down to have that conversation as we were talking about, or realizing the different ways we can actually have a conversation with God
Mhm.
about. So I think it's really important to now, as we're hearing these information or receiving these, it's about time we start to look to get to know God like earlier in our team
Yeah.
than waiting until we actually need help
Yeah.
to go to.
I think even thinking about it on a personal level, right? Because if, let's say, we're talking about God being on a friendship level, which He is, because He calls us friend.
Mhm.
But imagine your friend is coming to you only when they need something. They're
Mhm.
calling you, oh, can I borrow this? Or can I have this? Or can you buy me this? Can you take me here? Can you do this? Can you do this? And you're going through a hard time, and they come in to tell you about their hard time, and then you say, oh, just to let you know, Sister Ivy, I'm going through a hard time too. Oh, okay. But I just want to talk about my hard time,
Right.
okay? I just want to tell you about me. I just want to do what I want to do, and I want to ask you, how are you going to feel in that relationship with that
Mhm.
friend?
Mhm.
You're going to be like, yo, this person is so needy. You don't even want to be
It's
around them.
one-sided.
It's one-sided.
Yeah.
And God will never, ever get to the point of saying that you're being needy and you're being one-sided.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is put yourself in that situation of you wouldn't want to be the person who is always getting things being taken away from. You want to build that relationship because you know what a healthy relationship looks
Right.
like, because you know what you want for yourself.
Exactly.
So just building that relationship with God, I think, is very.
One way.
You got to think about it in different ways,
Yeah.
right? You got to think about it in different ways.
What I'll add to that was
Uh-huh.
awesome. What I'll add to that is the other way. I mean,
Uh-huh.
from our side to God, it's more of asking.
Yes.
Right.
But also from God's side to us, it's more about purpose.
Yes.
Because God has a purpose for
Every
everybody
single person.
on this earth, and that is
Yeah.
why God brought you into this earth. There's a bigger purpose that we all have to achieve,
Yeah.
and it is God's purpose for us.
Mhm.
So the other side of the communication is knowing from God what your purpose is
Right.
in this life.
Yep.
So,
So I
that's,
have a question. Do you feel like this is a yes or no question? You don't have to like delve into it. This is not a shame game. But do you feel like, not, it will be two questions. Number one, do you feel like right now in this moment you know what your purpose is? And then number two, how recent did you find out what your purpose is?
I plead the fifth. I mean, I want to say I don't know.
Okay.
I want to say I don't know my purpose. At the same time, I feel like I do know it.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm caught in between that. Like I know what it is. I don't know.
You
what
ain't gotta go into it, but that's
exactly
all
what
right.
it is.
You're not great.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So for me, purpose has been evolving,
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
and there are times that I think I have one purpose,
Uh-huh.
and there are times that I think I have 200 purposes.
Yes.
But the way that I go about it is
Uh-huh.
whatever I believe that God wants me to do.
Mhm.
If God wants me to focus on my children's education at this
Mhm.
particular point, that is what I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
If God wants me to start a blog,
Mhm.
that is what I do.
Mhm.
Whatever I have that sense, and it all comes with the relationship building.
Yes.
Because as you build a relationship with your friend, you get to know more and more how that friendship will grow.
Yeah.
And the way that friendship will grow is when you both understand your purpose.
Mhm.
That, oh, this is what I need to bring to the table,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and that is what my friend also needs to bring to the table.
Mhm.
So I think it evolves. As you grow as friends, your purpose also evolves. And yeah, so don't be worried if you don't know your purpose.
So it's about the same thing because I
Yes.
just didn't break it down.
Yeah.
you did it.
But that's how I feel. Like
Yes.
I feel always. Sometimes I
In
look at
different
myself,
seasons,
Like
yeah.
I know I'm a helper.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like to help people.
Mhm.
When I see or hear people's stories, it hits me different.
Mhm.
So you know, it hits me at a certain point in me that I feel like, oh, I can get the best out of somebody.
Right.
I feel like I can do that. I'm good at getting the best out of people. I feel like I can get somebody to move from one point to another gracefully.
Mhm.
I feel like I do those things like so with ease, and that's a thing of this is me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe that's actually my purpose. I just-
There you